E rere ana te pepe I te pō. E rere ana ki te whai I te reo. Te reo mai kokei I kume I te manawa. Te reo I ere mai tahiti e. Ko te pū, ko te kauru, kei te hia kei te koronga. Koronga mātāne. Tūramarama anu ku tūramarama arangi. Te rangi e tū nei te papa e takoto. Nā tauira o ngā wānanga whakamau ki te ingoa o io I te wānanga. Tūturu ofi te whakamaua kia teina. Teina. Haumi e hui e tai ki e. E ngā mana e ngā reo e ngā matāwaka o ngā tōpito anu ku tōpito ārangi. Ngā tini kārangatanga o te motu, o te taimoana, o te taiwhenua. Te kini I te mātauranga o ngā mātua tīpuna he mihi nunui kia hua ko te pai. Kia te aho I te hinengaro mo ake tonu atu te wairua o ngā tīpuna mātua kua ngaro ki te pō. Haere I te ara taki tini, haere I te ara taki mano, haere I te ara e kiara e kore e karere ki muri. Te tira mā taipō ki te ruku taipō. Hoki mai te nei tātau te tira mātai au ki te ruku tai awatea. E kete atu ana, e kete ana mai. Kei te kōtai rere tahi koutou kua tai ki te pai o tō tātou nei whare. Tēnei te māngai o te Waka Hourua e mihi kau atu ana ki a koutou. Nau piki mai, nau kake mai. Haere mai I muri I te kōmuri aroha. I rungi I te kāranga a tēnei rōpū. Ki ngā hoi, kia hoi tahi ai tātou ki te whenua taurikura. Tētahi ao e tau ai arangi nui, e pai ake ai a papatuanuku, koe rā te manako o tēnei rōpū, ka rea hapa, koe anoa tā koutou. Nō reira koutou, me mihi ka tika kia koutou katoa, nau mai, haere mai, whakatau mai rā. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko haimana herini tēnei, I am going to be your facilitator for this evening, and to begin, I just need to talk about a few housekeeping matters, just so that you are aware. The event will be recorded, so if you don't want to be recorded, you can turn off your video. I understand you totally. I do that also. What we would like to do is we have some introductions. We have the panelists speaking, and then there will be a bit of background as to our action and why we are here. And we hope to, at 7 o'clock, be in our question time. And we also have allocated time for our breakout group session as well. We hope to be wrapping up at about 5 to 8. And so that's the brief overview of this evening. And I suppose I also need to talk about some guidelines, tikanga, me ki tikanga kōrero. Just so that you know, Te Waka Hourua supports smashing the patriarchy. And so we are encouraging wahine voices in the discussions. Please don't be offended if preference is given to wahine voices first, tānema. It does mean for us, tānema, we will, when we do speak, have to be prompt and succinct, something that we may not be used to. When one is not speaking or doesn't have the floor, please could you have your mic muted? Use the chat box to ask questions. The questions will be recorded, and we will endeavour to get round to answering them should we can. Please be mindful we are being proactive by constructing kōrero and mahi to assist Te Papa to tell the truth about Te Tiriti. So make our comments in that vein, please, if you have any. Kia ora. I think that is where all I have to do in terms of housekeeping. So I'd like now to turn to the panel discussions, and I invite the first panelist, please, to deliver a brief kōrero about themselves. Tēnā koe, I believe it is you, Catherine.
Kia ora. Kia ora haimana mo tō karakia ki te rungarawa, and kicking us off so beautifully. And I'm just checking in with my technical team here. I'm about to share my screen. Pai tēnā. Here we go. So I'm just going to do a bit of background about the Waka Hourua for those who may not know, but first just a little bit about me. My name's Catherine Murupainga Aiken. I come from Ngā Tikuri and Te Rarawa and Te Hikuatika and Te Taitokiro. My background is in human rights advocacy, particularly Indigenous human rights. I've been involved in 2 iwi treaty claims settlements. One as a project manager and another as a negotiator. I've done work at the UN on Indigenous rights, and currently living with my huarangatira, my husband. We're living here in Whangare. And I have 1 son, so I'm very interested and concerned actually about the state of the world, including Te Tiriti justice issues and where they intersect with climate crisis issues. So that's a bit about me. So yeah, let's hit it. So who are we? Well, this is some of our members. We're a climate and ecological and social justice group of tangata whenua and tangata Treaty allies. So it's not just tangata whenua, it's not just Māori in our rōpū, it's everybody who would like to be an ally in this kaupapa. We were originally born out of the local Aotearoa New Zealand group of the global movement Extinction Rebellion, and our broad kaupapa is to firstly amplify Indigenous voices in the climate justice and ecological protection space, and secondly to work through the lens of Te Ao Māori to mitigate climate and ecological breakdown. And we look to examples of non-violent radical obedience to Māori values, traditions and beliefs for inspiration and guidance in bringing about the systemic shift we need to force positive transformation in the climate justice space. Some may know that as civil disobedience, but we like to talk about it in the affirmative of radical obedience. We've got 13 principles for Te Waka Hourua which underpin what we do, and I won't go through them all. I've summarised them here in slides, but I might just pick out a few to highlight because somebody's going to give me the secret signal when I'm getting close to my 5 minutes, so I'll have to be mindful of the time. But for example, the first one is it's like he waka eke noa. We're all in this together. The climate justice and Te Tiriti justice issues affect all of us. And if we look at some more of our principles further down, we have this idea that, you know, we're all in this kaupapa of guarding life because we all share a relationship to it. And not just the physical life that you can see, but even the life force of things, of everything. It's very important. And in doing so, obviously, we have high regard for, you know, the tikanga of our tupuna, our ancestors, passed down to us, their wisdom. So we use that as like a strong compass, if you will, and guidance for the work that we do. And truth and honesty, that is super, super important, because you've got to tell the truth if you're going to get anywhere fast, and we need to get to where we're going fast, right? Also, just the principles of paying attention, being aware, and also respectful to one another. Obviously, without respect towards one another, we're just going to dig a hole for ourselves. So it's pretty stock standard, really. Peaceful resistance, so that's non-violence. Getting violence, it just begets more violence, and that doesn't really seem to work. So we're all about the non-violence. Love, obviously, in addition to tika me te pono, there's the aroha. Yeah, have like manawa nui, you know, be courageous, be bold, and in that we really do value our connection with the Wairua space, which, like our wisdom from the ancestors, it gives us direction and guidance in these very confounding times. You have to cut through all the noise, and sometimes the only way to do that is through the Wairua, right? So I've put some websites at the end if you'd like to explore more of these principles in detail, because these are just sound bites. Feel free to do so. As well, Te Waka Hourua has 4 demands. You could call them requests, but, you know, demands. Primarily in our climate justice mahi that we do. And these are directed to the state, the government, but also civil society, including the corporate sector and such. So the first one is to tell the truth. Kōrero pono mai. Tell the truth about the climate emergency. I'm getting the 1 minute countdown. Awesome. Thanks, hon. The second one is just do the mahi. It's no good just, you know, being a, what do you call it, keyboard warrior. You got to get out there, boots on the ground. You have to make that level of sacrifice. The next one is beyond the veneer, and this is about this idea of a citizens' assembly. We're really interested and committed to exploring the value of that, because holding our elected officials accountable is very important. And the last one is restore the mana of the land, and of course that's about, you know, the government has to implement Te Tiriti of Waitangi, and also it has to implement, recognise he whakaputanga and implement the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples when it comes to climate, ecological and social justice. So that's a bit of a zoom through who Te Waka Hourua is. Thank you very much. As promised, here's some websites. If anyone wants that PowerPoint, we can probably organise to get it to you. So I will pass the baton on to our next speaker. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Catherine. Under 5 minutes. Set the bar. Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko tui rātana tōku ingoa. Ko te arawa ngā rauru, ngā te raukaua te iwi. Yeah, I live in Motueka. I'm a dad with 3 young boys, and they're a big reason why I'm sitting here tonight. I'm a member of Te Waka Hourua, obviously, and also a member of Extinction Rebellion. And yeah, I think tonight the idea was for me to talk to you all about our campaign with Te Papa. So my idea was I'll break it down into three parts. Makes it easier for me to kind of digest it as well. But starting with why we chose to target Te Papa. Target's the right word. Who did it and how? Pretty simple. So as Catherine said, our kaupapa as Te Waka Hourua is to connect the dots between the climate crisis, ecological crisis, social crisis, Te Tiriti justice, climate justice, and bring the understanding that it's all interconnected. So that's why we chose to go to Te Papa, was to try and shift the climate narrative, because we were a generally climate group, to making it about social justice and bringing those connections together. But there was also the other side of that, well, not the other side, is the idea that Te Tiriti justice is climate justice. They're one and the same. So going to Te Papa is not separate from going to Fonterra. At the end of the day, we're tackling the same baddies. So yeah, that was the idea behind it. The other thing to that too is that by going to Te Papa with the message that we brought, it no longer came about, it was no longer about greening our capitalist economy, but it was actually about system change and changing the system, because our current system isn't going to bring forth the change that we need to see. Well, that's what we believe anyway. So Te Papa being a pillar of our system, it seems like that's what we need to start taking, was those pillars out. So Te Papa was, for us, is a central pillar. It's the pillar that holds our history. And if our history holders aren't telling the correct history or the true history, then we're doomed from the get-go. So the idea was to go to Te Papa and demand that they take the English translation or the English version, the treaty, down from the place that it sat, which was alongside the Te Tiriti, Te Reo version, and the idea would be that it ends that narrative that they are the same, or that they hold the same prominence. And the way that Te Papa has it, anyone going in there who cannot read or understand the Te Reo version would look at the English version and say that's what it is, that sovereignty was ceded, that all these things that we were taught at school are true. When now that the truth is, for a lot of us, or for me in particular, that I'm starting to learn our true history, it is a blatant lie. So it has no reason, it doesn't deserve to be there, it shouldn't be there. It's actually, I believe it to be a criminal act to still be there. So we went in to challenge Te Papa, but also just to bring it to their forefront, that it can no longer be the way it is. So that's what we did. So who went? It was a mix of Extinction Rebellion members and Te Waka Hourua members, and to an extent we're all one and the same. And we did it at the start of our Spring Rebellion at the end of last year, which was a week of action in Te Whanganui Atara, trying to bring forth the kōrero around climate justice and Te Tiriti justice and all that. And we decided to do it at the start of the week to set the tone for our week, was to go into Te Papa and do this action. And we did it, and it was really cool. I think everyone left that action on a real high, because it actually felt like we were achieving something. And I think everyone who was there can vouch for that. Our demand, like I said, was to call for Te Papa to remove the English artefact from its place of prominence alongside Te Tiriti immediately, and to end the false colonial narrative that they are telling their many visitors. 1 minute, okay. So we went in. So the biggest part of our action was to go in, was to decide the energy we wanted to bring to our action. Did we want to go in there guns blazing and try to rip the thing down, or do we want to go in there with, let's say, a peaceful parihaka style kind of mentality and energy, and in a way that engages, that we can engage with Te Papa. And that's the way we chose to go, and it was the correct way to go. It was the tika way to go, because it showed that we weren't just a bunch of rowdy, angry people, that we were reasonable, that we were here to get our message across clear, and I think it gained the respect from a lot of people, including the staff at Te Papa. We decided to occupy the exhibition space where they have Te Tiriti on the walls and all that, and we occupied it for 181 minutes, being 181 years since Te Tiriti was signed. And there's about 50 of us there, and every single one of us read the letter out aloud, which is the letter that we sent to Te Papa, which we could probably make. We should make that available for people to read if they want to. And then following that, we had waiata, and we recorded all and all this, because we had plenty of time, and it was really powerful for all of us. And then we left, and then later on in the week we came back, just a few of us, to offer Te Papa a koha of our blanket, which was a blanket, and the idea of the blanket was to replace the current artefact. We said, take that one down and put this one up there as a placeholder for what's to come. And they accepted our koha, And then and we managed to have a really in-depth kōrero with Puawai Cairns, who was the, I don't know who actual role with Te Papa, but it's right up the top. So and that was quite meaningful and powerful for us there. That was there too. So yeah, that was our action. And following that, we then have our petition. The idea of the petition is just to keep momentum going, because any activists in this space know that when you do an action, it's really easy if you don't have things planned later on that it just dies off and gets forgotten. So with the petition was just a momentum grab. It was to keep things happening, get people involved, and it's worked because there are people here tonight, which is really cool. And we have more coming, because we're not going to stop until we've won. Because, you know, what else are we doing? Yeah, so I think that's most of it. I think just to close, Te Papa states that it's our place. But until the lie they have been perpetuating ends, that statement holds no truth. Our goal is to make Te Papa a place for all. So yeah. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe Hika. Just so that you know, Jeff is using the little drum to signal to our speakers, panelists, that they have only a minute left to speak, if you didn't realise that already. So tēnā kōrua, and now I invite Rachel. Tēnā koe Rachel, kōrero mai koa.
Kia ora koutou, ko Rachel tuku ingoa, tangata Tiriti. My ancestors come from Eastern Europe and England, Scotland and Ireland. I grew up in Porirua and I live in Papaioea at the moment, but tonight I am sitting here in Pōneke with the sunshine out. I'm glad to be here. After our action at Te Papa and our consequent visit at the end of Spring Rebellion, as Tuihi said, we had a pretty open and in some ways enlightening kōrero with Puawai Cairns, who consequently had been at Te Papa on the day of our action and just kind of come and had a look at how we were in that space. I think probably slightly concerned, but was really, I think it made it easier for us to come back and speak to her, because we were very peaceful and respectful of the space and the other people in it. But we felt after that conversation, there was still, whilst some kind of pieces of the puzzle emerged and she gave quite a lot of information, there were still lots of gaps about the development and the installation of the exhibition, the Treaty of Waitangi, Signs of a Nation. So we undertook this process of discovery. One of the comments that Puawai made that has really stuck with me was that she reflected that a colonial institution like a national museum could never be decolonised, but it could be indigenised. And she talked about the institutional framework of change, and that in that setting, the way that change happened, the phrase that she used was, we just have to hurry up and wait. And Te Waka Hourua, being a climate justice movement that sees the systems of oppression of Indigenous peoples as one of, if not the single most contributing factor to climate, biodiversity and social collapse, the bureaucratic wheels of change turn too slowly in the face of the current crises. So that hurry up and wait method of change is not going to work for extinction. extinction is not part of our kaupapa. So the next step that we decided to take was to make an official information, a request through the Official Information Act. So we did that on the 8th of December. We asked for information pertaining to the advice and the recommendations of the exhibitions advisory of Māori Advisory Committee. So that was way back in 1998 when the exhibition was being developed. We asked for correspondence between the Māori Advisory Committee and Te Papa regarding concerns that the committee or individual members had about the development of the exhibition, the content, and the installation, and also we asked for Te Papa's responses to that. Other things that were included in the OIA request were around the number of complaints Te Papa has received regarding the erroneous portrayal of Te Tiriti and the English treaty. We asked for how many requests there had been to correct the error and for Te Papa's responses to these complaints. So we received a response from Te Papa, which was a very heavily redacted document, minutes from committee meetings, etc., that really gave us zero information. And I'm going to just really quickly share my screen and just give you a quick little whiz through what this document looked like, if I can find it easily. Here we go. Share, sorry, excuse me. And I'm going over my 5 minutes. So this is the document. This is what we received. And you can see the first page that looks like it might have information is just telling us what we asked for. And this is what we got. Nothing. Not one single answer to any of our questions. So we thought about what we could do next, and we thought about making a complaint to the Ombudsman, but realised that we would need to do a bit more work with Te Papa first. So we made a request for a review of that decision, and if they could just have another look. And we also believed that there had been information withheld. We had Puai herself had told us about some of the concerns that the Māori Advisory Committee had. And she also had told us about complaints that people had made over the years about the treaty being displayed as though it was a translation of Te Tiriti. None of that was in the response that we got. So we asked them to review that. They came back with, oh yes, I think there's one document that we left out, but we haven't heard from them back again. It feels like, I guess, what has come for us from this is just an affirmation that Te Papa is not our place at all. It is not the home of a true history of Aotearoa. And I think that's all I need to tell you all about that. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe, Rachel. Ngā mihi. Kia ora to each one of our panellists. I believe very shortly we're going to be breaking out into breakout rooms, and I would encourage us to have some pātai, some questions for to discuss within those breakout rooms. I'm trying to read how long the breakout rooms are going for.
Want me to introduce that to Haimana?
Kia ora, kia ora.
Kia ora. Tēnā koutou, ki ngā kai kōrero, me ngā manuhiri ki konei, tēnei hui, ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Ko Kelly toku ingoa, ko tangata Te Tiriti aho, no i tipu ake au no Ōtepoti, Aotearoa, i noho anau ki Pōneke in ai anei. I am just going to talk quickly about the breakout rooms. I'm really happy to be a member of Te Waka Hourua, and my background is in participatory design through architecture, mostly for community spaces, but I've all but given that up for climate and social justice activism, mostly focusing on Te Tiriti justice and Te Tiriti-led governance structures for climate, to address the climate emergency. It's a tiny bit about me. My computer always decides to do things. So in these breakout rooms, we thought this is really in the spirit of what is something very fundamental to our group, which is cooperation. We think that in order to address this emergency, we will have to cooperate in radical and trusting ways. And so we wanted the opportunity to be able to kōrero with you all here who are interested in this kaupapa, and to hear your ideas about how we might be able to realise this campaign and what might be further inspiring, what might further inspire the actions. So a guiding question that we have for us all this evening, which Catherine put in the chat a little bit earlier, but I'll read it out, is: given the importance of this campaign, what specific actions would you recommend to inspire and support the realisation of this campaign's objectives? And further to that, for Te Tiriti justice more broadly. So I will copy and paste that into your breakout rooms when we go into the breakout rooms. Catherine, you got a clarification?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Just wondering if we might open up the floor to our manuhiri, because, we're of a size that we can actually, if anyone has questions out there for any of the kai kōrero, the panelists, please feel free to ask them now before we go into the breakout rooms. Pia, what do you reckon, Haimana?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that was the plan. I just want to do the intro explain the breakout room first, because it's going to take me a little while to set them up. So after I've explained it, then please, we would love to have any questions that you all have for the three wonderful panelists who came before. So in the breakout rooms, please be conscious of equality. We would like to hear from each of the voices. It would be wonderful if someone could please volunteer to take notes. If you feel like a facilitator would be helpful in order to hear from everyone, then please give yourself a facilitator. There are a few enough of us here that there will be someone from Te Waka Hourua in each rōpū as well. We thought, very quickly, we'll give you a couple of prompts of some things that we've been thinking about in terms of where to go next. We've been talking about a letter writing campaign. There was a staff member at Te Papa who informed us that had some positive responses for change in the past when they become inundated with letters from the public about one particular thing. That can be quite effective. In a similar vein, campaigns have been one through Google rating, everybody poo-pooing on Google and things going from 5 stars to 2 stars. Organisations really don't like that. However, Te Papa has got 14,000 reviews, but it may be hard. It may, even if we can't, drop their star rating, we might be able to get, 50 in a row that are saying how bad the treaty is, and that might be meaningful for them. We've got some in-place protest ideas, which we might not be able to talk about here. And I will share a Google Doc, so if you are taking minutes, and feel like just contributing to that, again, in the spirit of just building together our ideas in order to achieve our goals, please do use that form. So kia ora, kumatu, tēnei.
Pai, nā reira, he pātai wā koutou tuatahi mai. Has anyone a burning question for one of the kai kōrero so far, one of the three panelists? Tohungia mai te ringa, mena he pātai. Just put your hand up or unmute. Karekau. Well, if that's the case, then should we go into the breakout rooms, Kelly?
Yeah, I'm just setting them up. So please, if anybody felt they didn't quite get enough time to talk, now is your time to add.
Ka paira. Well, I suppose Te Tiriti. Oh, tēnā koe, te rūnanga convener e tū Aotearoa, kōrero mai e hika. Kia ora rā, mo taku he.
Tēnā koutou ngā raurangatira mā. I'm a mokopuna of Waikato, Raukawa and Maniapoto. My name is Te Pai. I'm also the national convener of Te Runanga o I Tū. So that was firstly, I wanted to introduce myself before I asked you any questions, because I kind of figured I'm new to this, to your platform. I came along to listen, to see what your kaupapa was, and what interested me was telling the truth about the treaty. So that got me interested straight away. So at this stage, I don't really have any questions. I just want to see how you what the strategy is that you're advising. As you know, the trade union movement, we're a movement of a collective of workers who organise for power in the workplace. So you know, your kaupapa is aligned with what we believe in, and that is the truth of the treaty, Te Tiriti. What did the Te Tiriti say? What does it say? And it really bothers me that Te Tiriti is in a place like a museum, which to me, a museum is a place where you have dead things. For me, the treaty, Te Tiriti is alive, and we should treat it as such. And I think we make change by practicing what it is that the Te Tiriti says. And I'm really clear about what Te Tiriti says. And I don't acknowledge that Te Papa is our place, even though the coloniser says that it's, you know, Te Papa or Tongarewa, whatever it's called. It's not our place. It's a place where tauī we go, you know, for a weekend excursion to understand who we are as a people. Well, that's not the place you'll learn about us. So that's just my kōrero. I just really wanted to introduce myself, do the whakawhanaungatanga thing, and try to make those connections between us to build a solidarity and a cohesiveness around realising the tohu and the mana and the mauri of Te Treaty of Waitangi, because that's something that my tipuna, and certainly many of your tipuna, signed up to way back in 1840 and previously in 1835, where we already declared our independence and sovereignty to the rest of the world. So yep, you know, we're just carrying on in the same footsteps. We're just walking in the footsteps of our tupuna. And I just like to join up with other people that are on that journey. And there's a lot of people on that journey. but we were sort of a little bit fragmented, I think. And here too, in particular, we're really concerned about the climate crisis, and our kaupapa is, putting people first, putting the planet first, people before profits, and we're certainly encouraging the voice of workers to be heard around transitioning from high emission industries into more environmentally friendly industries. So yeah, we're pretty involved in that. We're involved in, the living wage, ensuring that everyone has everyone's contribution in society is appreciated and valued, regardless of how big that contribution may be. And it is about going back to those values of our tupuna, which Te Tiriti or Waitangi, might I say, remind us, sought to protect our practice of. Because in protecting our practice of those things, we actually fulfill the obligations of the core principles of those values that our tupuna held, which is to manaaki. To manaaki everyone that lives and works in our rohe, in my rohe in particular. That's an obligation I hold sacred. And many of these lies have impeded our ability to actually fulfill our role. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on. Thank you, Haimana.
Tēnā koe. Mau I whakatika mai I au, there should be a time when we can whakawhanaunga. The Rōpū thought that we could do it in the breakout groups.
Oh.
So aroha mai mo tēnā. Chris, do you have a specific pātai for someone? Kia ora e hoa. Pātai mai.
Kia ora koutou, he manuhiri māua ki tēnei rōpū. Not a really specific question. This is my first time here, so I'm kind of just getting to know everything and seeing how we flow. I wanted to know if there is strategy in place in terms of progressing this current kaupapa already, or if that's what we're going to be discussing in the breakout rooms.
Papai, I will hand it over to Catherine and she can answer that kōrero and probably respond also to Atawhai. Kia ora rā e hoa.
Kia ora, Haimana. Just want to thank you, Atawhai, for your awesome whakamārama tanga about your kaupapa, where you're coming from. Look, what it made me think of actually was, I mean, you mentioned what Te Papa Tongarewa is for, and your perspective is totally on point. If you think, Te Tiriti, and it is, I agree, a living document. The thing about the National Museum is that it has so much status. So whatever content is in that space is seen to be a standard. So the standard in Te Papa is a lie right now, a lie. And schools come to Te Papa to learn. They come from all around our beautiful country to learn about a lie. So, that is why we think it's important. Number two, there's meant to be a compulsory, it was meant to be this year, teaching of Aotearoa's history. Why did that get kicked to touch to 2023? And if we're going to have that be correct, then certainly Te Papa's exhibition, which is a lie, needs to be corrected. Hey, it's not unreasonable, mate. Hey, we all know that. We're preaching to the choir and everyone on here. But hey, the rest of New Zealand needs to know. Third point, we need constitutional transformation in Aotearoa. Urgent, super urgent. If we're going to have climate justice, social justice, all the rest of it. You may have heard this recent kōrero about, hey, let's go to a republic. There's no way we're going to a republic without a constitution that puts Te Tiriti and he whakaputanga first. And if we're not even going to have the correct kōrero in our National Museum, how the dang do we expect to have a constitution that's going to achieve that? So, this is the Decade of Indigenous Languages. It just began this year, the International Decade of Indigenous Languages, Why isn't Te Tiriti, the Reo version, the legit version, why isn't that the one that is held with the highest esteem in this country? Because it's a legally, binding international agreement. What is going on here? You'd have to be actually consciously forcing in the direction of ignoring that purposefully. That's what our state has done, is continuing to do. And even though we have a tribunal that's got, they make findings and recommendations, we can't enforce anything because there are only recommendations in the on and on and on. So I just thought I'd leave those points for everyone to think about. Beautiful question. Oh, and bro, is it Chris and Sima? You asked, is a strategy in place? Yes, and also no, because that's what tonight's about. We want to get your fellas' views on where to from here. Hey, don't give us all the lowdown on all the confidential stuff. Just give us a nod and a wink about where you reckon we ought to be heading with this sucker, because we got to be heading somewhere. We've got our views, but what are yours? We want to know. So kia ora for being on the call, and great questions, and kōrero, and look forward to the breakout rooms. Is there anyone else in our, rōpū who'd like to say something? Kia ora.
Kia ora rā. No, they wouldn't like to say anything, and I'm making an executive call. Nā reira, kia rite mai koutou. Just be ready. You will now go into breakout rooms. There's enough for everyone to have a kōrero, and one of us will be in there as well, so we can take lead if needed be. Kia ora rā.
Yep.
Nā koutou katoa, no mai hoki mai. It is nearly 2:45, and I believe we were going to get feedbacks from the three rōpū. Correct me if I am wrong. May I ask rōpū toru, would their kai kōrero like to feedback, please?
Kia ora, hai mana. I was just taking, and I tried very hard to get other people to feedback, but the notes are in front of me and people were happy with it. So I'll just very quickly go through those notes. We had some really great discussion in our rōpū. We had the guiding question, and then some of the questions that we came up with after that are, even though the foundational work will continue, the question arises, what happens in other museums compared with this quote-unquote national place? Also, Catherine at AUT suggested that from the Tauiwi Resource Group, that she's going to speak further with a colleague there who's a Tauiwi activist about discontent with representation, potentially at AUT and elsewhere. There was another pātai brought up, a lot of us are pātai, about history teachers and academics in school, the educational package, and how do we know that that new curriculum will be accurate? As we all know, we're supposed to be teaching New Zealand history in school soon. Next year, it's been pushed out. But how do we know that's going to be accurate, and who decides what that accuracy is? Suggestions to actively combat or actively tell the truth would be things like letter writing into newspapers, and also going into local museums and making sure that things are actually as they need to be according to Te Tiriti and the Māori translation of Te Tiriti. Another question that came up is, how do we as tangata tiriti hakaonere Te Tiriti in our daily lives? We need to tell the truth, but do we know what that is? So we talked about these smaller museums, all museums, including the National Museum, having truth in their exhibits and checking locally, and if not, that's where the complaint process starts, or other actions like what we're looking at doing and continuing can continue there as well. It was pointed out as well that all of us really need to know what those articles in Te Tiriti are, and if you don't understand Te Reo Māori, that's fine. Get the right translation, the Māori translation, and know them so that we can take them into our daily situations, local spaces, private spaces, work spaces, and actually ensure that they are being acknowledged and honored. So those are the correct translations. Also, some feedback on the action was given at the end of our kōrero. So Valerie was nice enough to share the experience for those who weren't there, and what went down, and how the impact was there. So, and the idea is to keep, it was peaceful, but also to keep telling the truth and making sure that Te Papa is telling the truth. Kia ora, that's enough for me.
Tēnā koe rōpū toru, ka paira, pai e nā whakaaro. Tēnā koa rōpū tahi. Who was the kai kōrero for rōpū tahi koa?
Kia ora, that was me.
Tēnā koe sama. Kia ora.
So we talked about exhausting the Official Information Act channel. So following that through and putting some publicity around that as well. We talked about putting pressure on bosses and board members, especially. So having them be the target of letter campaigns. And we talked about a social media campaign, particularly on Instagram, since Facebook is iffy these days with social justice stuff. So videos, infographics, hashtags. We talked about highlighting the difference between governance and sovereignty, and really honing down the importance of that. And we talked about pushing a potential boycott movement led by Māori artists or historians. The teachers, as someone just mentioned, and yeah, hashtag boycott Te Papa. That's us.
Tēnā koe, o tira tēnā koutou. Awesome. There's been some good whakaaro coming through, people. I wish I was also in your discussion breakout rooms too. Unfortunately, you're going to have to put up with me. I got nominated as the kai kōrero for Rōpūrua. We had an interesting discussion. We led off with, well, if Te Papa is a government entity, how does it honour Te Tiriti, as they say they are? And then the concern was also raised about, do the tangata whenua, mana whenua, iwi, know about the action that we are taking at Te Papa? And just so that the others know, in the rōpū, it's not straight out a single iwi in Te Whanganui-a-Tara Pōneke that you're dealing with. There are a number of iwi here, and so we have to deal with multi-iwi in Te Whanganui-a-Tara. But the point was taken and acknowledged that any action in any tribal rohe needs to have, if not the backing, the hau kainga needs to be informed. We liked the idea of the letter writing, and to MPs, etc., and to the board members. We also thought that there should be Te Tiriti training, which led on to education on the differences, and education, whether that be in work education or in schools, etc. And that like our climate issue is to raise awareness of Te Tiriti and to highlight the differences in the understanding, because I believe that, well, we believe that's what people would like to know. And then the question led to, well, who delivers that, and wouldn't that just be someone else delivering the same misleading message that Te Papa's giving us right now? So we acknowledged there needs to also be a process of decolonisation, re-indigenisation of education itself, and how do we amplify the iwi kōrero about our history. And one example was that of Waikato, who have said in the Waikato they will be the ones that will deliver the kōrero about Waikato. And of course, that's something that we supported too. And we felt that Te Papa needs to follow the direction of these iwi. So they get iwi into Te Papa to be the iwi of residence. I think at the moment, rongo whakaata are, or they've just finished. So then, if all these iwi are being resident within Te Papa, shouldn't those iwi also be people that are saying to them, well, actually, that thing about that, Te Tiriti, that treaty that you got up there, that's actually wrong. It's misleading, which may be another avenue for us to take. So that's a brief summary of our kōrero, and right on the bell. So I'm looking who to hand over to now. Who do I hand over to now?
Hi, Mana, maybe just a quick where to from here so everyone knows what we do.
Kōrero mai, Catherine, you let us know.
No. Okay. Just a whakaro is an amalgam from all of our kōrero before this webinar and the objectives of this webinar. So the point was to get some ideas about our campaigning on this kaupapa. So where to from here? We're going to scoop up all these ideas. We're going to have a bit of a think about, matching up our capacity as Te Waka Hourua with the ideas, I reckon. And of course, part of that is we'd really love to expand our membership so we can get more boots on the ground, more human resources to help. So spreading the word is always good. And then, we're just going to lay out a plan, and we will, of course, have to be super secret squirrel about it unless you're, with Te Waka Hourua and you're in the sort of planning circle. We can only let out exactly what certain things are coming close to the time, unless there's something basic like letter writing or the Google, rating, whatever, things like that. Yeah, we can share, but there are some other things that we will not be able to share about right now. And that's kind of where we're at. So anyone else ever thought about that on our team? Oh, sure.
Hey, listen, I've just had a mental block here. Who is the Minister of Arts and Culture? It's one of us.
Penny. Is it Penny Henare?
Yep. Now, he should know about this. Now, what we do in the trade union movement, we have built a relationship with members of parliament so that we can promote a workers' agenda, right? So on a regular basis, we ring up those ministers and say, hey, we need to talk with you, because we actually put them into that place. So we call up our markers and say, you need to sit down and have a kōrero with us and listen to our workers. And we actually get our workers to tell their story. So why can't that work the same way in this particular campaign? You sit down with the Minister of Arts and Culture, and you've got an advantage because he's Penny Henare from Te Tai Tokerau, and I see there's a few of you from Te Tai Tokerau. This is where your whakawhanaungatanga, comes to the fore. He has to talk to you. You've got something in common. You share whakapapa. And the misrepresentation of Te Tiriti is severely impeding what the treaty sought to protect. And he will talk to us. He will talk to you guys. That's just one thought I had. Ka pai? It works in the trade union movement, I tell you.
Kia ora rā. Are from the people present, apart from Te Waka Hourua, is there any last comments you'd like to make before we hand back over to Jeff to close our webinar for this evening? Oh. Kia ora te wehi. He's actually te Waka Hourua. I'm sure I said no. Te wehi kōrero mai e heka.
Kia ora, break. And I'll ignore that sigh at the beginning. I just wanted to make it clear to everyone that was here, and Catherine did touch on it about membership, which is not really a word we even use anyway, because what is membership? That we are open group, like if you want to be part of what we're doing, then be a part of it. Tangata whenua, the door is open to Te Waka Hourua. Tangata Tiriti, there's a different avenue, because Te Waka Haurua's main thing is to keep Māori safe. So Te Taiapa is the avenue for Tangata Tiriti to take, which eventually does lead to Te Waka Hourua. So I just wanted to make that clear, because we need you all.
Ka mau te wehi o tēnā sales pitch te wehi. No, and I would encourage the same. However, I did offer the last speaking rights to our manuhiri. If there isn't any last comments, I will hand it over to Jeff, and I will say as a parting comment from myself, thank you for participating. Thank you for being here. I hope this has given you some insight into what Te Waka Hourua is about and some of the things that we do. And again, if you're interested, join us. And I believe our email has been put in the chat. Kia ora rā. If there's no other kōrero, ka hoa atu te rākau ki a koe, Jeff. Tēnā koa whakakapi mai e hika.
Nā mihi e te parata, tautoko nā kōrero, kua kōrero hia, nā mihi kua mihia. I'd just like to thank all of our speakers today and all the participants for coming on the call. For those that didn't know, I'm also a member of Te Waka Hourua, and I'm just working in the background on this call for the reasons we stated in the beginning. But yeah, I'd just like to thank everyone. The question about Te Taiapa, we have a Facebook page for Te Taiapa, and we meet the last Sunday of every month. It is an open space, but the idea is to have a safe space, if you will, safe space for tauiwi to ask questions and learn a little bit more. And it's called Te Taiapa because it's kind of like a boundary before we start putting all this pressure on our tangata whenua members. So it's a great space to learn. It's a good small group at the moment, not too small, but it's a good group at the moment, and we welcome anyone to join in. So just look on the Facebook page or get in touch with us, and we can let you know when that's happening. Without further atu, mihi atu ki a koutou anō, he karakia whakakapi, I te wā nei, nō reira mihi atu ki a koutou. Whakairi ake te kite kōrero, ki te pō tuarongo, hei tiki anō mō muri ake nei, kia wātea ai, kia wātea ai, kia tūruki whakataha ai, kia tīna, au mie huie, ai, te kore tākia mai, ki te pō te tākia. Te kore e tākia mai, ki te pō te kitia. Te pō tango, te pō whāwhā, te pō namu, ki te whai au ki te ao mārama, uhi, wero, tau mai te Māori a haumie, uie, ai, kia. Kia ora tātou, mihi atu ki a koutou, hōra rau.
Hōra rau.
Hōra rau. Kia ora everybody, thank you very much.
Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.
Ko Māori.
Ko Māori.
Māori.
Māori.